Hi, and welcome back to me reading my silly little book. First, let's just get through the acknowledgements. This will be part 2 of chapter 1, Run. So, our acknowledgement, I got the idea to record myself reading these chapters from an author called Stories by Sarah Danielle on YouTube and Wattpad. You can find her story on either her YouTube or Wattpad. The one that she has up is called Forsaken by Shadows. For the disclaimer, this story draws on a few different things from Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons is of course owned by Wizards of the Coast, not by me. Therefore, this is a fan work not intended for commercial purposes and is not endorsed by Wizards of the Coast. It is unofficial fan content, so don't sue me. I'm just making this for fun. Alright, with that said, we can get started. She tore through the forest to the best of her ability, gallivanting like a young foal, jumping over uprooted trees and collapsed branches. The forest was thinning. Andraste's heart leapt at the idea that she was escaping Lolth's grove, as well as Chevrash's arrows. Fuck you, Black Arrow. Or whatever they fucking call you. Loser is what they should call you. Can't catch me, bitches. Ha! Andraste smiled to herself. She saw a clearing up ahead. The edge of this creepy-ass forest. Andraste raced into the opening. She slowed to a stop. Far from being the edge of the forest, she found herself in the very center of the former inhabitants' residence. There was a crumbling black palace in the center, and dilapidated buildings encircled it, former homes of worshippers. What was Lolth the god of again? Andraste stepped solemnly through the ghost town. An air of sadness and loss drifted amongst the houses. Andraste peered into a window. Hanging up were glittering necklaces and bracelets. Vanity? Andraste laughed to herself. She stopped, thinking for a moment. No, what the fuck? She shrugged to no one and walked into the very structurally unsound store. Andraste looked around the building. Some of the goods were thrown on the floor, the countertop smashed, and chairs overturned. But other parts of the store looked pristine, albeit a bit dusty. Andraste picked up one of the somehow still shining necklaces and examined the craftsmanship. Jewelers? Crafts? Ah, yes, artisans. She was the goddess of art and artisans. Andraste thought for a moment as she moved her finger over the faceted stone. I know I'm not out of the woods just yet. No pun intended, but wherever I go next, it wouldn't hurt to have a little cash on me. Andraste picked up the necklace and put it around her neck. Not like they're gonna miss the stuff. She repeated this with a few more sets of necklaces. She piled on the bracelets too, and grabbed a handful of earrings, but wasn't sure what to do with them. She tossed the earrings up and down, jangling them in her hand, thinking. She turned around and saw a group of banshees moving outside the storefront. She dropped to the floor, hoping they didn't see her. She put the earrings down on the ground. Perhaps she was stealing from people who would notice, even if they were dead. Fuck! How am I gonna get out of here? Wait, how long has it been since sunrise? Andraste gulped. She did not want to be here when it got dark. Andraste quietly moved along the floor of the shop, peeking out the window to see where the banshee had moved. She could still see them outside. They were getting farther away, but they were still lingering. Well, looks like the shopping trip is done with. She relaxed a bit, sitting on the floor. Good news is I haven't heard the dogs in a while. Maybe I finally lost them. Andraste looked up. the once beautiful jewelry store. The colors were barely perceptible any longer, but some silver paint could still be seen flaking off around the molding of the place. Shadows of symbols could be seen throughout, decorating the establishment. Shuttles and combs used in weaving, a distaff and spindle, and a spinning wheel. Right. The Weaver of Fate. Another name for her. The spiders kind of make sense now. Andraste scowled and rolled her eyes. Forget it. She's a fucking bitch, and nothing is going to change that. Don't start feeling sorry for what happened. People made their choices, and those choices messed up your life. Andraste looked out the window again. The banshees were gone. Not sure if that's good or bad, but we'll try it. Andraste got up and slunk out of the store. No sign of them. She continued through the town, cautiously. She hid behind buildings and peered around corners. She tried to be as silent as possible, but it was hard with so much added jingling from the stolen jewelry. As she poked her eyes around a corner, she was met by the soulless, hate-filled eyes of a banshee. Andraste gave out a startled cry and raced away. It wasn't as if she was afraid of the banshees. The one she had met earlier was no match for her, but she did not want to face an entire town of them. The wails from the three of them in succession made her vision blur. She shook it off and regained her hold on reality, but stopped running due to the throbbing in her head. The first banshee missed Andraste as she fled, but the other two swiped at her with their ghastly claws. It felt like someone reached into her body with cold hands and scraped her insides with their nails. It wasn't particularly painful, so much as disconcerting. Andraste swung at the ghostly women, each time making the connection. But this time, her swipes did not seem to have as much impact, hitting ethereality instead of anything else. The banshees all swiped at her. She dodged and dodged, but as she evaded their icy claws, she inadvertently fell in the way of another's claws. She swung again and again, up, down, sideways, slantways. She jumped away from their touch, then flipped backwards in a backbend to avoid their claws. She swung at them again. Her sword seemed to float through them. This pissed her off. She screamed in the banshees' faces. Two can play at the wailing game. Black tendrils oozed out from Andraste. The banshees looked at each other, and then at their opponent. There was a pause before Andraste hurled herself forwards again and attacked. The hitting and dodging continued. The banshee on the right took another swing at her, which connected. Andraste continued to slash at them in a frenzy. The ghosts clawed at her, as if in desperation. She leapt on an upturned barrel and flung herself backwards. She landed on her feet, and then raced back to attack, twirling her sword in anticipation. One of them let out a cry, and high-pitched whining was heard from behind her. Andraste turned to look. "Shit," she said under her breath. From the forest, she could see large black forms appearing, scuttling down from the trees and screeching. The other two banshees seized the opportunity and gripped her flesh, pulling and tearing at her clothing, and that eerie, scraping feeling returned. One ripped a few of the necklaces off her. "If you wanted them that badly, you could have just asked, bitch. Now it's ruined." "Thanks, Adri." Andraste pulled a sarcastic, taunting face. Then she thrust her sword into the one she was mocking. deep into her abdomen. Andraste twisted the sword in place and stabbed again. The ghost cried out as the others cried in unison, as if feeling the pain as well. Andraste ran on top of the barrel again and leapt, flipping over the group. She took another slash at one of them from behind, slicing off her arm. Andraste glanced quickly over her shoulder. "Sorry, Sariel," she said. "Gotta go." Andraste blinked 30 feet away, reappearing a few blocks from the ghosts. She waved for an instant before she took off and raced down the gray and white stone streets. Andraste sped away from the outskirts and towards the ominous-looking palace. Out from the side streets came more banshees. Were they hiding all this time? She looked up at the sky around her. No canopy of dead branches extended this far, but the sunlight was still dim, the way it looks before it rains. Andraste passed an armory. She skidded to a halt and walked back, looking at the items in disarray on the ground. A spider the size of a person crawled over the roof and hissed at her. Andraste shouted and flung one of the knives into the creature and continued running. The large, black tree palace grew closer. She came to the main square. A reflecting pool sat directly in the center, surrounded by empty plaza all around it. Andraste swallowed, turning and looking around her. Banshees and spiders came from behind her. They poured in from in front of her, on her left and right. There were only a few options to run to. The pool, the palace, or up. Andraste ran towards the pool, as they cinched in around her. Up was not an option. She turned towards the palace. Waves of giant spiders rushed over and around the palace. Also not an option. Small spiders crawled up her legs. She gave a shout as she swatted them away. A screech came from behind her, and something raked its nails down her back, clutching at her clothing. Pulled and tore the already meager garment. She turned around and swung at the banshee. To her right came a giant spider. It reared and jumped at her. She summoned her shield just in time, and its fangs stabbed at the metal, rolling off it. Beads of venom dripped off the shield and down her arm. Another, smaller, but still large spider jumped at her from straight on. She raised her sword to occupy its searching fangs. The spider pushed her backwards, pressing her back into the wall of the pool. Her head dangled close to the thick, dirty water of the well. It stunk of death, and Andraste dared not touch it for fear of some terrible curse. She struggled against the spider, not wanting to touch the water nor the needling, hungry fangs. Another 2 banshees joined. All 3 clawed at her, tearing the top of her robes from her shoulder. "Hey," she eked out from between gritted teeth. "Buy me a drink first." Andraste managed to right herself and push one of the spiders off, slashing and bumping the other in the process. She breathed for a moment as she gazed across the plaza. From the streets to the tops of the buildings, everything was blanketed by a mass of undulating black, with high-pitched wailing and fluttering specters swarming in toward her face. Well, this is it. I'm fucking dead. The spiders came back, this time 3, 4, 5 spiders rushed in towards her, fangs at the ready. They met her shield and sword and pushed her back again towards the muddy, disgusting water. She screamed and hacked at the spiders and banshees as vines and roses spread out on the ground around her. The spiders continued to come, however, using each other to navigate the thorns. They pushed down on her with colossal weight. If they didn't poison her, he'd simply smother her to death. The spiders pressed down on her. The banshees ran their icy claws up and down her legs, ripping the breath from her lungs and scraping her from the insides. The spiders, in contrast, were oppressively hot, and their coarse hair made her itch like crazy. They pushed the air further from her lungs. Their legs pierced into her arms and feet. Their venom dripped down her neck and stung like lemon juice in a paper cut. Andraste began to sob and scream. Her one hope was Chevrosh, the god who hunted her. God fucking damn it. Where was the bastard? Hadn't he followed her? Those were his black arrows in the forest. Please, Chevrosh, please come. You can kill me later, please. Please. Someone help me. I can't fight these all myself, she cried. She let out a final, retching scream. She fell backwards. But she didn't hit sludge. She could breathe again. The clawing had stopped. The itching, too. Her ears were no longer filled with the hum of thousands of bodies and screeching ghosts. She opened her eyes and blinked in the bright daylight. She was lying on the grass and staring at a blue sky. She sat up and looked around. A flat grassland, empty for what seemed like miles around. There was a mountain to one side, a very tall mountain, whose peak seemed to disappear into the clouds. Peeking just above the clouds was a silver, bean-like ring. This can't be Arvindor anymore. She stared at the strange ringed mountain. Unless that's Mount Olympus? Where the fuck am I? And more importantly, how'd I even get here? Is this God heaven? Am I dead? Andraste fell back heavily to the grass, her arms outstretched. I feel like I should have stayed. That banshee owes me a drink after all. She sighed. It took her a few moments, but then she remembered why and immediately covered her chest. Wait. Andraste sat up and looked around, wrapping her arms around her torso protectively. Peaceful, empty prairie. She fell back to the ground again, arms spread like before. Oh, what the fuck does it matter anymore? I'm a god. I can be naked if I want. I'll just kill any mortal who sees me. Andraste lowered her voice slightly and waved her hand in the air as if reading a proclamation. Gaze upon the divine boob and perish. A weak smile came to her lips, though it faded quickly. She closed her eyes. I feel ancient. What woke me up? The hunting? But why now? When is now? How long have I been asleep? Her expression saddened. this time. I feel like I keep doing this. Falling asleep for a long time. Does that make me older and wiser, or younger and dumber because I've existed for a long time but only lived about 100 years of it? Why do I feel so ancient? Thanks for listening to book one of our the Afterlife series, Artifacts. This was part one, The Blood Hills, chapter one, Run, by me, False Aurelia. Thanks.